from someone who has changed millions of lives with your idea of Start With Why. Before you got to this concept, where were you in your life?
I was living what some people would argue was a dream. I own my own business. Success is sometimes more difficult than failure.
Sinek is a leadership expert who helps people find purpose, build trust,
and communicate with clarity to lead more inspired and impactful lives.
I was lying, hiding, and faking every day, and all of the horrible things started to seep in. Depression, paranoia, fear. Somebody who loved me, a dear friend, didn't know what was wrong, but something was wrong. And she confronted me. I went to a psychiatrist, and at the end she goes, "Yep, you have ADHD." And again, another weight off my shoulders, because you start to realize I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. The solutions you find to the challenges that you have when you're young become your strengths as adult. My career has been being able to hear things that other people miss, being able to translate difficult things to make them simple.
How did you come up with the concept of why?
The why is the most permanent. The what is the most flexible. So being in a period of flux is very different when you know your why than when you don't.
But how do you deal with uncertainty?
When people think about uncertainty, it's uncertainty of destination. Mine is route. I know exactly where I need to get to. I have no idea how I'm going to get there.
Since I've got to know you a lot more, is the humility around conversations behind doors. And that has inspired me.
I don't know what to do. I know why I do what I do, and I know how I do it. I just don't know what. And when you don't know why you do what you do, and then you also don't know what to do, that is the most unnerving, freak out, horrible, just uncertain experience you can have.
A lot of people struggle with that, being authentic and actually saying what they feel in that moment. How have you grasped that so well?
Practice. It's the little kid jumping off the diving board. I had to learn that I had more capacity than I thought I had. I fundamentally don't believe we have strengths and weaknesses.
Firstly, I want to say thank you to tuning in and listening to the show. It means a huge amount. And connecting with all of you is something that I absolutely love as part of this journey of growing the show. One of my biggest goals of 2025 is doubling the reach of this show. And I can't do that without your support. So I would love to ask you a favor. If you can press subscribe or follow on whichever platform you listen to. This helps us reach more people. And for me, elevating women in science is so fundamental and ethical and scientific information. So if you feel the show empowers you and gives you the information that you've been seeking, I would love to ask a favor in return and to hit that subscribe button and help me reach the goal that I've set for the show of 2025. Thank you. Simon, welcome back.
Nice to be back.
In your home.
It is. It is. It is.
So I've been really trying to think about something different and unique to do today, because I've got to know you a lot more since our very first conversation. So I actually want to go all the way back, okay? Before the concept of why was in your mind, before you became known, before this thought even ideated, what were you like as a child? And did you ever think that you would be doing this leadership role, being in this industry that you are now? Take me back.
So, I'll answer the second question first. No. This is not part of any grand plan at all. In fact, my whole career is an accident. It was one of those, I'm a great example of, there's no point in having a life plan because it's not going to go according to plan anyway. But I'm also a very good example of knowing how to follow opportunity when it shows up. So yeah, no, none of this is part of the plan. I had no concept of any of it. I never thought, people always say, everybody's got a book in them. I didn't think so. I never thought I had one book in me, let alone 5, So yeah, no, this is all new. What was I like as a kid? I'm pretty consistent, believe it or not. I was a pretty happy-go-lucky kid, which today I would call optimistic, I was really good at being I had friends in all the different cliques in school, I think I was a generally happy people referred to me as happy-go-lucky. I mean, that's what they called me. So I think it was a very, very similar, believe it or not. There are things that I learned that, I can tell you there's one profound difference that happened to me when I was pretty young, where I learned to take responsibility for myself and my own happiness. And I know exactly when it happened. It was quite young. It was in junior high school, I think. So what is that? When you hit junior high school, you're like 13, 12, so pretty young, right? And my best friend was Adam. And in our clique, Adam was the alpha. And one evening or one weekend, Adam and I had a fight, as, not a fist fight, but like had an argument, as kids do. And the next day I got on the bus to go to school and nobody sat next to me and I had no friends because Adam told everybody not to sit with me because Adam was the alpha, right? And I remember sitting there thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm lonely and no one wants to sit with me because Adam told them to. And I remember thinking, like, I mean, I don't know that these were the words, but I know that this was the incident. That's when I had the realization that my happiness on a day-to-day basis was based on me making sure Adam was happy. And that's insane. And I sort of went on this, from that experience, I went on this journey to reclaim power over my own happiness. And I started experimenting with being my own self and not working so hard to conform to what Adam wanted me to be so that I would have friends the next day. And I mean, I went to school that time in America, and so we didn't wear school uniforms. And as kids did and, still do, sort of trainers, white socks, pair of jeans, and a t-shirt. I mean, that was how we dressed. And I started wearing shoes to work. I started wearing black shoes to work with white socks. So everybody else is in trainers and I'm in shoes. And I just started experimenting with being just a little bit different. And then it slowly morphed into wearing brightly colored socks, where I would wear brightly colored socks to school every day. And that was all through high school. I didn't own a pair of plain colored socks, maybe only to like go to the gym, and I wore brightly colored socks. To this day, I have stacks of brightly colored socks and really only wear plain colored socks, if I'm in boots or like, or working out. That's pretty much it. And just these little experiments with dipping my toe into individualism, dipping my toe into not fitting in and learning to be comfortable. And from there, like a plant, as I got more comfortable with the little things I added and added, before you know it, I don't look or feel anything like everybody else. But it wasn't like a decision or a day. It was an evolution of that. And it all started for wanting to be in control of my own happiness.
I love that. It makes sense with something that you answered for the Compassionate Pure Substack, which is about your identity with duality, about wanting to be accepted, but also wanting to be different, wanting to fit into the norm, but also not wanting to. And I very much relate to that. I mean, I have a similar story, but I actually got sent home from school when I tried to change my school uniform, and I came in fishnet tights and
Bold.
A very cool skirt, and I cut out my logo on the jumper and fitted it to a very cool fitting black jumper, and I got sent home in 30 minutes from not abiding to the school uniform in the UK. I've always struggled, until probably the last 5 years, to have the acceptance of my differences and maybe what makes me more unique. And that was part of my neurodivergency that I never really understood. Like, hearing you talk about that at 13, what do you think gave you the confidence, without any other acceptance around you, to carry on that and allow you to have that inner confidence? Because it's something that I never had until I understood myself.
I mean, I don't think we can ignore the role of parents, without getting to the point of breaking all the rules, which would get me sent home. My parents were encouraging. I said I wanted a pair of black shoes because I couldn't go buy a pair of black shoes at the age of 13, and they were like, all right, I don't think they warned me that nobody else is wearing them. I think they just went along with it. I think my parents were really good at sort of just encouraging us to sort of follow ourselves, within the framework of the rules of the system. So we weren't sort of rebels, like we played with inside the box, but we could go anywhere inside the box, and they were very encouraging of that. And both my sister and I are quite different, but we're both ourselves. So I don't think we can ignore the role of parents. I think that's a big part of it. Some parents scream and yell at their kids to toe the party line with no variation, and I think that only creates stress. And there's so many stories about this, the kid who just likes climbing on the furniture, and the kids, encourage it, and then that person becomes an Olympic medaling gymnast. There's so many stories of when parents encourage kids to just follow the thing that they like to do, that it becomes their talent in their future. So I think that has to be a part of it.
So you sound like a curious kid. That's how I would. That's
terribly
how I'm
curious. If there was a button that said "Don't press," odds are I pressed it. Terribly curious. took apart all my toys, tried to put them back together, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, experimented like crazy, I wanted, like I had crayons, but where other people were drawing with them, I wanted to know what happened to crayons when you set them on fire,
So what I love about this is that you've obviously had, and I love it, The Curious Mind is one of my favorite books, and it's something that I believe that I'm a curious person, and I think curiosity is one of the best traits one can have, because you kind of, you end up making your own life through your curiosity. But when I opened your workbook, Start With Why, and I don't want this conversation to go into things that you have gone into before. I want this to be different and I want this to be new. But something that I literally opened a page on was one of the first. And it said, the concept of why is a deeply personal journey born out of pain. I discovered the idea at a time when I'd lost any passion for my work. So I'm kind of looking at this workbook, and I wanted to know from someone who has changed millions of lives with your idea of Start With Why, before you got to this concept, where were you in your life, and what is your why?
I was living what some people would argue was a dream, which is I own my own business. I was doing the entrepreneurial thing. We had good clients. We did good work. We had amazing clients we had no business having. And that's a really exciting, insane journey to sort of go on that entrepreneurial ride, roller coaster is more like it. And after 4 years in business, my fourth year in business, where I'd now beaten the statistic that over 90% of all small businesses fail in the first 3 years, I'd beaten that statistic. I was now part of a very elite group of people who survived. All the love and passion just drained out of me. And I was faced with, success is sometimes more difficult than failure. Failure, you can learn lessons. Failure, you pick yourself up. Failure, you learn grit. All of these, anybody who's had any kind of failure, will say, I don't want to ever go through that again, but I'm glad it happened. It's a very common phrase. But success, we don't talk about, like the challenge of success, because now it's working, but I actually had Peter principled out. Because success means I was now, the organization was bigger than I could do by myself. And I had no skill set on how to build the structure to build a business, because all a business is a structure. That's all it is, right? And I had no skill set. And so I could no longer run on force of personality. I stayed in business for 3 years on force of personality. I could be in every pitch. I could make all the decisions. I could, be with all the clients. And now I couldn't. And I didn't know what to do. And instead of just admitting it and asking for help, I was lying, hiding, and faking every day, thinking that all of my credibility came from my ability to have all the answers and know what to do, which I had no answers and didn't know what to do. And when you're lying, hiding, and faking every day, that is a stress. And it is there is no joy in being in that mindset. But you have to keep up appearances. And for anybody who's ever been in a dark place knows, if you keep it to yourself, it only gets worse and lonelier and darker. And all of the horrible things started to seep in. Depression, paranoia, fear, all of it. And I felt all of it, and it was a bad time. And I'm very lucky that somebody who loved me, a dear friend, didn't know what was wrong, but something was wrong. And she confronted me. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. Nobody else. I was so good. Nobody else knew. And I came clean. I told her that I was struggling. I told her that I was lost. No, because of the friendship that I had. She offered me a safe space. She knew so much about me already. She knew all my secrets and skeletons. I mean, I had no fear with her. But I wasn't going to volunteer that information, that's for sure. But when confronted, I couldn't bullshit her, So I came out and was clean to her, and it was a weight off my shoulders just talking about it. And I think this is something people don't realize, the value of friends and the value of honesty and the value of asking for help, which is you don't actually have to have the solution to relieve the stress. You just have to have said it. You just have to have named it and pointed to it. And the stress goes down remarkably, because I still didn't know what to do, but it was a weight off my shoulders that was a gift.
What did you say to her? Did you just say, I'm lost and I don't know
I don't
how
remember
to go
the
to the
details.
next
I don't remember the
stage?
details. I think one of the ways it started, it wasn't this one single conversation. It was a series of conversations. Okay. And one of the things that happened, I don't know if it was the beginning or the middle. I don't have a recollection, but she she saw a test in the back of a magazine, like Psychology Today or something like that, that said, "Do you have adult ADHD?" And she said she was really nervous, and she brought me this test. She goes, "I think this is you. I think you should take the test." So I took this little self-test at the back of a magazine, and it said, if you score something like 9 out of 21 or something, you should see a doctor. I think I scored 20 out of 21. And so I went to the doctor. And I sat down with my GP and I said, "I think I have adult ADHD." And I went through all my symptoms and everything basically that I answered yes to in the back of the magazine. And he went, "That's a good diagnosis." And he wrote a script for me to go see a psychiatrist. And I went to a psychiatrist and sat down. And she basically asked me questions about my life as if she was a fortune teller, things that I didn't even realize were symptoms. So she would ask me things like, "Do you have struggle holding down relationships?" I'm like, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" Like, I haven't told you anything yet. She says, "Do you have trouble keeping your apartment clean?" I'm like, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" "Terrible trouble keeping it clean. Good intentions never follow through." She goes, "Yeah." And she basically went through describing my life right back to me. And at the end she goes, "Yep, you have ADHD." And again, another weight off my shoulders, because you start to realize, wait a minute, I can manage this. There's nothing I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. That this is something I can easily understand and manage and learn about. And so this series of events, including that diagnosis, including her intervention, but it was all her, and including her offering the safe space that I could go back to her and say, "You were right. Thank you." You know? And she admitted later on to me that she was unbelievably nervous to bring that test to me, unbelievably nervous. And so she gets a huge amount of credit for having the courage to bring it to me anyway. She didn't know if I was going to get mad or be defensive. You know, when somebody tells you, "I think you're broken, I think there's something wrong with you," of course our instinct is to defend. But I knew she did it out of love, and I that was never my response.
I've spent years in the fashion industry, but also years as a scientist, trying to understand how our bodies are meant to move. And I'll be honest with you, most shoes are terrible for our feet. I know this firsthand. For years, I wore the wrong shoes, ones that looked great, but in reality gave me persistent back pain and messed up toenails. I searched everywhere for a pair of shoes that wouldn't just support my feet, but would also help them heal. And I struggled because most healthy shoes don't exactly scream style. And then I found Vivo Barefoot, something that finally looks good and actually works. I wear mine with cargo pants, awesome leather trousers, a crisp white tee, and my favorite sunnies. Not only do they feel great, but they really fit my style. Wide, thin, and flexible, these shoes allow my feet to move naturally the way they're supposed to. And the best part, just 6 months of barefoot shoes can increase your foot strength by 60%, helping to undo the years of damage from conventional footwear. Now, if you've ever had the same problem and tried to find a shoe that supports your body without sacrificing style, then this is it. Try Vivo Barefoot for yourself and feel the difference. You can get 20% off if you use the code LWBW20 at vivobarefoot.com, where the T's and C's apply. Trust me, your feet, your back, and your outfit will thank you.
How old were you when this all kind of transpired and you found out?
I was probably 31 or 32. So I went my whole life not knowing.
Because I
reached well into adulthood without knowing.
So I've had a lot of conversations about this with people, and the later you find out, I mean, I think it's quite hard to digest because I think you have a lot of grief for the past. It's a very hard thing to explain because a lot of people go, well, you must feel very thankful that you now understand yourself. And yeah, you do. But you also look back at your life and go, well, that's why I didn't really understand myself. That's why I found it hard to articulate. But I actually have a theory that most people that sit here with me, and this has helped me personally, about 90% of them are neurodivergent. Some of us come up on the show and they've never spoken about it before. Like Shane Parrish admitted to me that he was dyslexic on this show, and that to me blew my mind because I thought he was like a human thesaurus. It's helped me come to understand myself more, that actually so many incredible leaders have neurodivergent traits. And I don't believe it's just because they're neurodivergent. I believe it's because the friction that they have had to go against has made them so resilient. They've become incredible problem solvers and hyper-focused on what they're good at. And that friction has made them incredible leaders and incredible people.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think I've been espousing something very similar, which is the solutions you find to the challenges that you have when you're young become your strengths as adult. And it's a survival instinct, right? Which is, I can't read. I mean, I can physically read. I'm literate, but I struggle to read books. And good luck reading textbooks in school. It just was a non-starter. I just had no attention to do so. Plus, they're so boring, you know.
So glad
it doesn't help that they're boring. If they were fun to read, it'd be more fun. But but they're so boring, and I wasn't curious necessarily about the thing. I read, volumes of the encyclopedia for fun. That was the kind of weirdo kid I was. But they were articles, right? But I still had to pass school. So some kids don't find those solutions and they flunk out, right? But I had to figure out how to get through school. And so, how do you get through school when you can't do the reading? You have to get really good at asking questions, and you have to get really good at listening. You just don't have a choice, And if you don't understand something, you have to get really good at asking for somebody to explain it to you differently. You get really good at reflective listening. Like, is this what you mean? Because I have to pass the test. It's nothing to do with my desire to be a good listener. It's an absolute survival instinct, And so I didn't know it at the time, but you look at my career, and my career has been being able to hear things that other people miss, be able to translate difficult things to make them simple. Well, of course, because I had to translate things so I could understand them, so I could pass the test. So absolutely, they were my superpowers. But going back to, the number of neurodivergents you have on the show, I think the way we talk about the mind and the brain, I think is everybody has something wrong with their body. Everybody. Like, somebody's got bad knees. Somebody has low back pain. Somebody has one bum shoulder. Somebody has a weird elbow. Everybody, 100% of people have something wrong with their body. So why on earth would we think that nobody has anything wrong with their mind? 100% of us have something with our mind, just like we have something with our body.
So we're human.
Because we're human. And whether it's minor or severe, whether it's a known neurodivergence, because when I was a kid, there was no such thing as, we knew dyslexia. We had no such thing as ADHD. It wasn't even a thing, right? And so we're constantly adding to the vernacular and the glossary of what could it be in our brains that are making us a little different or a little unique. The tragedy of all of those neurodivergences is that we define them as deficiencies rather than advantages. Thank goodness I was an adult, because I could process the information. I already had built a sense of self-confidence and all of that stuff, And so when you call it a deficit and a disorder, I'm like, oh, whatever.
I know. Well, when you said I was diagnosed, right? It sounds like you're diagnosed with a lifelong disease.
Yeah, I mean that's just the start of it. I mean, we are telling children you have a deficit and a disorder. That's what ADHD is. It's a deficit and a disorder. Yes, that's one symptom. It's also a frickin' superpower. That when I am in hyperfocus, can't we just tell kids they have hyperfocus? And sometimes that goes with hyperfocus. Sometimes you're very distractible, right? Tell them they have a superpower, because my ADHD is an absolute superpower. Does it have liabilities? Of course. Everything in the world comes at a cost. You can't do anything in the world. You can't get anything in the world. You can't succeed at anything in the world for free. Everything comes at a cost. So the cost of my superpower, right? The cost of my superpower is that sometimes I'm distractible. Sometimes I struggle in relationships. Sometimes I struggle to keep my home clean. Okay. And so I can either delegate, ask for help, work my way around them, find tricks and solutions. And those are very small prices to pay for the advantages that I get from my magical superpower. And by the way, I believe everyone's the same. I am not unique. Everybody has to figure out what it is that their neurodivergence, we call it divergence for heaven's sakes, but let's go with it. But everybody has to think about what their neurodivergence is that makes them better, smarter, faster than anybody else because of that unfair advantage. My ADHD is an unfair advantage against people who don't have it.
Well, that's like the how, right? Which is your strengths. Because when I grew up, I didn't know I was dyslexic until much later.
Isn't it funny that dyslexic is such a hard word to spell?
I don't know why.
Right?
It's so
make
cruel. It the hardest word to spell.
It's like putting the word S in Lisp.
I know.
It's just cruel.
I still can't spell it.
It's cruel. It's cruel.
And dyslexia also, it's a processing thing. It is cruel. I mean, yeah, when I found that out and they told me I was labeled as disabled, by the way, at school, DDS. I mean, isn't that just like a huge trauma response to be like, I'm disabled and I'm word blind? Okay. But for me, like going back to your why, which sounds like it was coupled with your ADHD blessing.
It all happened at the same time. It all happened at the same time.
Just rephrase the diagnosis.
It all happened at the same time.
Just talk me through this one, because I think this is like the biggest pivotal period for you in your life, right? So just talk me through this time. So you got blessed with ADHD, your superpower.
Always had it, just got to highlight it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what happened? How did you come up with the concept of why?
So I already had conceived of it. I came from the marketing world, and so I already had this concept of the golden circle, and the original model was why, what, how. The definitions were the same, but I had what and how in a different order. And it came from looking at marketing that worked and marketing that didn't. I wanted to understand why some worked and some didn't. And I put together this little model, and I used it in new business pitches. And I thought I'd cleverly articulated, why communication works. It was only later on that I was at a dinner party and sat next to someone who we, making small talk at a dinner party is what you do. And she was telling me that I think it was her dad was a neuroscientist or something. And we just started talking about the brain, being curious, asked a bunch of questions. And she told me about the limbic brain, the neocortex, which is like neuroscience 101. It's not that deep. And I just thought it was so cool. And I came home and I just Googled it just to like learn a little more. And then as I started learning, I realized, hold on a second, this is exactly mimics this little idea I had on a shelf. And I realized that they were the same, that there was actually brain science that why my model would work. It wasn't just my opinion. It was actually grounded in biology. And it was, and so that gave, and I realized this is bigger than just a communication tool. This is like a what motivates you tool, right? I also know that you can't find your why by yourself. You have to ask for help. You just can't do it by yourself.
I agree.
For people who say they can, I'm like, all right, good luck to you, but you can't. And I didn't either. I knew that I needed somebody to take me through a journey that I couldn't take myself through. And I found a guy named Mark Levy way, way back when. I met him at a conference. He's a kooky, wonderful human being who took me on his brand journey or whatever it was. But it was kind of what I needed. I need somebody to look at me objectively. And he helped me articulate it and then I've refined it over the years. But to answer the question you asked before, my why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them so that together each of us can change our world for the better. And if you know me through my work or me personally, that's kind of who I am, right? That's who I am. That's what you're going to get, right? But the bigger issue was, or the bigger opportunity rather, wasn't learning my own why, though that was huge and valuable. It was that I figured out a way to help other people learn theirs. And that's where life got joyful, where I could share this process now with my friends, and I would help my friends find their why. And they started to find greater joy in their work, or some of them started new businesses, but a lot of them found more joy in the thing they were already doing. They would invite me to their homes to share it with their friends, and I'd help their friends find their why for $100 on the side. And people just kept inviting me and asking me, and I just kept saying yes. And when somebody said you should write a book, I was like, I mean, if it helps people learn this thing, I have no desire to write a book, but I was so inspired by the power of this little idea and seeing the power it had on people's lives that I felt like I have to. And it wasn't till I realized I was dealing with neuroscience, not a neuroscientist. And so I reached out to a man named Dr. Peter Wybrow, who is a world famous neuroscientist who runs the Semel Institute, which is I think the only institute devoted to brain health, brain science at UCLA. That's where he's at. And I reached out to him and said, I have this kooky idea. I'm not a neuroscientist. I need somebody to check the neuroscience. Will you help me? And he, for whatever reason, said, okay. And I sort of went to his apartment on a Saturday and I brain dumped all of my ideas on him. I just didn't stop talking, stream of consciousness. And then we had the weekend booked and I went back to his flat on Sunday and I walked in and he was twitchy and nervous and uncomfortable. And I said, Peter, what's wrong? He goes, your model is wrong. I said, what do you mean the model's wrong? He goes, the definitions are fine, but if you want it to match how the brain works, you have what and how in the wrong order. I said, well, change it. Done. No problem. No, yeah, great, let's do it. So why, what, how became why, how, what. And it matched how the brain works. And it just makes more logical sense too. So it was a huge gift that he gave me, helping it match the brain. So I say all the time, the golden circle is not my opinion. It is grounded in the tenets of biology. And it was this wonderful human being, Peter Wybrow, who helped me make sure that it matched the science.
What basically made you find your purpose?
That was not my purpose. That was a mechanism to my purpose, right? My purpose is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. And the articulation of the golden circle makes more people want to know it, makes more people want to change their world for the better. That helps people work to their natural best. Like I had learned to work to my natural best because of this magical little model that was only designed to help me. Remember, embracing the golden circle was only meant to help me. That's it. It was to help me get out of that depression. That's all it was designed to do. I never expected it would become a thing that I would find to serve others.
So if people are listening to this now, well, that was over 20 years ago this all happened.
I mean, I can tell you, I know exactly when I first publicly articulated the golden circle in its current form. As a thing that is not just a marketing concept, was January of 2016. It's a long time ago.
Let me tell you about OneSkin and why I'm genuinely fascinated by what they're doing. Founded by all-women team scientists, OneSkin is a skincare brand that's redefining how we age. And you can get 15% off your first order using code LWBW. What's caught my attention is their groundbreaking approach to skin health at a cellular level. Instead of masking the signs of aging, OneSkin tackles the problem at its root with its OS01 peptide. Here's how it works. As we age, our skin accumulates senescent cells, or zombie cells, that speed up aging in healthy cells, causing wrinkles and loss of elasticity. OneSkin's OS01 peptide is scientifically proven to target these cells, reversing your skin's biological age for healthier, more resilient skin. This isn't about chasing eternal youth. It's about maintaining a strong, healthy skin at any age. And since your skin is the body's largest organ, keeping it healthy is key to your overall well-being. So if you want to see what the science of longevity can do for your skin, visit oneskin.co/LWBW and use code LWBW for 15% off your first order. It's a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So people might look at you now and say, hyper successful, written 5 best-selling books, which you can see behind me if you're watching on YouTube, and just think, wow, Simon's got everything figured out. You know, he's really figured out his why. He's really figured out where he's going, which, by the way, your why doesn't change.
No.
That's why I've not asked you that question about how's your why changed, because you say once you've got it, it's just that route forward, right?
It's the foundation of a house.
So something that since I've got to know you a lot more, is the humility around hearing some of these conversations behind doors. And something that I've really loved and that has inspired me personally, and I know will inspire everybody listening, is that you go, okay, well, I'm in a moment of fork in the road with where I'm going. I know what my why is, but the trajectory of how I get there is slightly changing. You don't want to do as much speaking anymore. And, your direction to where you're going is slightly changing, but your why has not changed. People might be really surprised to hear that you're in this moment of flux in your career. And I was, and it made me feel more connected to you hearing that. Simon's human. He's going through this moment of change. Because I always feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. Always I think am I going in the right direction? I have no clue how I'm creating what I'm creating. We all reach those moments where we don't know what's next. How are you navigating that right now?
So it's not unique. We all go through it. From the minute you graduate university or high school and they say, what are you going to do with your life? Or you make a decision and you realize, I hate this and I have to say, I don't want to do it anymore. It is a very common experience. It'll happen to all of us multiple times throughout our lives. And when you don't know why you do what you do, and then you also don't know what to do, and you don't even know how you do things, I mean, that is the most unnerving, freak out, horrible, just uncertain experience you can have. Lonely. So I only am missing one of those pieces. I don't know what to do. I know why I do what I do, and I know how I do it. I just don't know what. So I approach that flux, uncertainty, new adventure with much more gusto and joy than having none of those pieces figured out. And even a lot of these, there's a lot of tests for people to figure out, like, what your unique, strengths are, or how, there's many of them, and they put you and they give you blue, red, green, whatever it is, or they give you codes and numbers, and they're all really, really good. So you're getting the hows, you're getting the strengths, but there's no launch pad from that. So those are very helpful. And so the more pieces that you can figure out of the golden circle, because I don't think the why is the most important thing in the golden circle. They're all important. It's just the why is the most commonly ignored, it's the most infrequently uncovered. You have to know all the pieces, but the why is the one that is the most permanent and the most fixed, whereas the what is the most changeable and the most flexible. And so being in a period of flux is very different when you know your why than when you don't. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. I've tried this direction and that didn't work, and I tried that direction that didn't work, and I was 100% certain this is going to be my thing, and then I realized it's not my thing. I tried a few things and made these grand pronouncements. This is what and no. So a few fits and starts, but the difference is I'm kind of enjoying it. There's still moments of unnerving, and it's like, oh, I hope I figure this out, but it's just part of the fun.
But how do you deal with uncertainty? Because it can lead, I believe it can lead to one of the emotions of anxiety the most, being in uncertainty, and building a brand, being an entrepreneur, all of those things are coupled with uncertainty. But how do you really know when you're actually in that fork? How do you deal with that?
So there's a difference. There's uncertainty and there's uncertainty, right? The way I approach uncertainty and the way most people approach uncertainty are not the same. When people think about uncertainty, it's uncertainty of destination. Mine is uncertainty of route. I know exactly where I need to get to. I have no idea how I'm going to get there, right? Where most people, when they're dealing with uncertainty, they don't know where to go or how to get there. And so that's awful, where you're standing in a field and you're looking around and somebody says, well, where are you going to go? And you don't know where to go. And that is that just anxiety-riddled kind of uncertainty. How are you going to get out of this field? Where are you going to go? Make a life for yourself. What are you going to do for it? And I don't know. Well, what about there? What about there? There's a house over there. There's a hotel over there. There's a tree back that way. Which one's appealing? Which one? Like, that's the kind of uncertainty you're talking about. I don't have that. I know exactly what is beyond the horizon that I want to get to. So I know exactly which direction to face. I know exactly which direction to face. Now I just have to figure out, do I want to take the rocky road? Do I want to go through the woods? Do I want to go through the meandering streets? Will that one get me there? Will that one be fun? Will that one be dangerous? So I'm evaluating the route, but I know exactly way, way, way over the horizon where I need to get to. So it's a very different kind of anxiety. It's not, there's no anxiety of destination, just the curiosity of what route will get me there. And like I said, I've tried a few and I'm like, backpedal, start again, but I haven't changed direction. I haven't changed fundamental direction. I'm just trying to find the right windy road. Ain't no straight roads. I'm trying to find the right windy road, the one that I think will advance my cause and be really, really fun to travel.
I think so much with what you're saying is mental. I know you use the word mental fitness, and I use the word mental well-being. I'm very specific on how I've talked about that over the years, because I think we all have to, like going to the gym, we all have to kind of train our mind to be mentally fit or mentally well. And we all go through moments where we don't feel the best of ourselves, myself included. During these moments, how do you look after your mental well-being or your mental fitness?
So I'm bad at being motivated to exercise. I go through phases where I'm like, I'm a total gym rat, and times where I'm like, nope, not doing that, right? It ebbs and flows. So same with diet, ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm the healthiest person you'll ever see. And sometimes I snack like a pregnant lady. Like I just walk around the kitchen just eating. I'll go from kimchi to peanut butter, right? I mean, it's gross, but it makes sense in the moment, not healthy, right? It all ebbs and flows. The one thing I'm consistently good about when I'm in those phases is telling my friends what I'm going through. I'll call somebody up and be like, and if they say, what are you up to? I'll tell them. Hey, how you feeling? I'll tell them. And so I'm consistently good about making sure that I am vocal about whatever I'm thinking and wherever I am. Even if there's nothing they can do and nothing they can say, it goes right back to that story of when my friend intervened. It's just my ability to say it out loud that makes me feel that I have agency. When I keep it to myself as a secret, then I feel like it has control of me. But when I say it out loud and I put it over there, now I have control over it. May not know what to do, but it's not eating at me. I get to eat at it.
A lot of people struggle with that though. The voice of being authentic and actually saying what they feel in that moment. Like, how have you grasped that so well?
Practice. It's nothing but practice, right? It's the little kid jumping off the diving board. That's all it is. The first time your parents I remember when I was learning to swim, I didn't want to swim without my armbands. What do they call them in America? Floaties? Terrible name.
Armbands work, things that you put around your arms so you float.
Exactly. So I remember my parents, my mum was giving me swimming lessons, slowly let the air out of the armbands. I got to the point where there was no air in the armbands. And my mother was like, look, you can take them off now. I'm like, no. And I insisted on swimming with completely deflated armbands because they gave me confidence. I was swimming. I didn't realize it was me. Ooh, good epiphany here. Didn't realize it was me. It's what we talked about before for your Substack stuff, which is I had to learn that I had more capacity than I thought I had. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I like that. I thought it was the armbands. I think I'll have to, that's a good one.
Thank
you. Thank you, Sarah. Anyway, and the first time you realize you can swim, and then the first time you jump off the diving board and you stand at the edge, you're like, oh, and you walk back and you walk forward and you walk back and you walk forward. And at some point, whether it's you push yourself or other people yell and scream at you, or there's somebody behind you going, you gotta go, like whether it's pressure or inspiration, who knows, you jump off the diving board and turns out you survived and it didn't even hurt. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. And then you love jumping off the diving board, and then you do a belly flop, and that really hurt. And now you don't want to do it again, but you have to do it again. And it's just practice. That's all it is practice. And so the first time you do it with somebody, you do it with a close friend, you do it with somebody and you go like this, you're like, I need to tell you something. They're like, what do you need to tell me? Like, and that's how you do it the first time. And you kind of eke it out, kind of, sort of, not really. And then you do it again, and you do it again. And before you know it, a friend's like, what are you up to? You're like, well, completely lost in my life. Not really sure what I'm doing, but, enjoying the journey. And you just get good at jumping off the diving board. That's all it is. It's practice. I think anybody who thinks that you start here, you'll never jump off the diving board. I can't start at the 30-foot diving board and do do flips and pikes at Olympic level to start. That's madness. That is where you'll hurt yourself and break your neck. That's just madness. And it's the same here. If you start there, divulging your deepest, hardest, most complicated insecurities out the bat, no, you're probably going to do it at the wrong time to the wrong person. You're probably going to get humiliated or, emotionally punched in the face. You're probably going to feel stupid and even work. Don't do that. You got to work at it.
Those uncomfortable moments, I think, are so important for growth, right? It's so important. And if people might have this perception of you where when you said, I actually didn't realize I'd ever think I'd be doing this, standing on stage so eloquently with such autonomy, inspiring so many people, it just comes with complete ease. You sitting here talking comes at complete ease. This is what you're naturally good at. But people might be quite surprised to know that you're also quite introverted. How have you navigated those qualities? So I don't think that's something that many people talk about, but I actually think it's something maybe really important to highlight.
They're completely different things. So a friend of mine invited me to a Christmas party at her flat, and I said no. And I went to her Christmas party the year before and I hated it. I think I stayed 15 minutes.
And then you left.
And I left. I hated every second of it. And And so she asked me to come the following year, and I said, I love you, but I'm gonna pass. And she said, why? I said, it's the introvert in me. It's really uncomfortable. I mean, I can force myself to do it, but if I don't have to do it, then I'll choose not to do it. And I don't have to do this, right? And she was very aggressive. She sort of said, I don't believe you. I don't believe you that it's your introversion that you don't want to come to the party. She goes, I see what you do. You stand on stage for a living. How can you call yourself an introvert? Because she thought I was lying to her. And they're completely different things, right? I don't know how to make small talk. I don't know how to work a room. I don't know how to do any of that, right? I'm very good one-on-one. I'm great one-on-one. I love an individual conversation. I love the company of one or just a very few. I don't even like the company of 10 people that I know. I'm usually very quiet. It's like I love watching my friends sort of get to know each other. That's the best. I don't mind that. I enjoy, but I just stay out of it. And when I'm on stage, I'm having one conversation with one person because I look one person in the eye and I talk to them. And I talk to one person and talk to them. I'm having a lot of individual conversations, which is why I'm a good public speaker, because I'm not attempting to hold court. I don't like holding court. I don't want to hold court. I don't pan and scan and look around the audience and think that I'm talking to one person at a time, which is why I always request for the house lights to be up so I can see the people, so I can have one conversation at a time. So what makes me a very, very effective public speaker is that I am an introvert. And people are very surprised because before or after the big event, I'm just sort of, a little awkward or quiet. Or sometimes I'm in a great mood and I'm jacked up on caffeine and I'm having a good time. And then I have a bigger, larger than life personality. It's not like I'm always, I think, and this is the other thing, I think people confuse social awkwardness and introversion. You can be a socially awkward introvert and you can be a socially awkward extrovert. Like there are extroverts who derive energy from people, but you're like, dude, too much. That's socially awkward extroversion, right? I am a socially functional introvert who is sometimes socially awkward, right? But my personality is big and people think I'm extroverted and all of that can come out, but it is exhausting when it happens. Like I'll have fun and I beat big personality and I go home and I am done. I sit in the back of the car and I'm like, I need sugar. I'm exhausted.
How do you navigate that with your career though? Because half of your career is being on stage, is surrounded by a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
I don't go out for dinner afterwards. Like I always get invited, come out with the team for dinner. No. No, that's just more work. I went from working to doing more work. For other people, that's the time they get to relax and let their hair down. For me, that's more work.
So how do you relax?
I'm a homebody. I love staying at home. I love puttering around the house. I love little silly projects, fixing things, making things, building things. I do Lego like it's going out of style. I putter. I love companionship. I love the company of a person. I love sitting next to somebody and watching TV. I love it. And it's not antisocial. It's unsocial. I'm not antisocial. I'm very, very social. I'm just unsocial, meaning I like the company of a few a lot. And going out is great. I'm a foodie. I love going to restaurants. But it is always exhausting. And that's okay. I know this about myself. And sometimes I have the energy and sometimes I don't. And I'm gotten better about saying, I don't have the energy.
At communicating this.
Yeah. Going out for dinner. Are we going to go out for dinner tonight? I will, but if you don't mind, I'd rather stay home. If you want to go, I'm in. Because I'm also not the only person in the world. And I like to make sure that others are taken care of. And I can rally if I need to, but I'm just better at vocalizing it. Again, practice. That's all it is. And compromises, practices and compromises is all it is.
How do you, I feel like you've gone through a lot of kind of self-growth, how easy you are to kind of start communicating your needs outwardly.
Some don't like it.
Maybe that's just
Some
more
people
about
would
them.
rather I'd keep it to myself. It's not always a blessing.
Yeah, but I think it's actually worse if you can't.
I mean,
Because
again,
you rattle people up the wrong way and they can't understand you.
it's circumstantial.
Yeah, I think, well, I think
Nothing is, it's like what I said before, everything comes at a cost. Everything comes at a cost. And you have to weigh the costs, always. And sometimes the costs are worth it and sometimes they're not, right? So, I mean, we have to get away from this right, wrong, good, bad. There's no such thing as right and wrong. There's no such thing as good and bad. Everything is about cost. What's the cost of the thing that you want? That's it, right? There's the right way to build your career. There's the right way to do this. There's the right way to lead. No, there isn't. They're just different cost structures. And for some people, this cost is worth it. And for some people, this cost is not worth it, right? I mean, take a silly example. Some people devote themselves so intensely to their career. Some of them may not have a relationship with their kids. And in the moment, they may think it's worth the cost. Later on, they might reevaluate and be like, shit, not worth it. But the point is, there's costs. And I think what I've gotten good at over the years is not believing, I've completely limited the concept of right, wrong, good, bad, right? In myself as well. There's no such thing as strengths and weaknesses. I fundamentally don't believe we have strengths and weaknesses. We have attributes and characteristics. And in some circumstances, those attributes and characteristics will manifest as a strength. And in some circumstances, they will manifest as weaknesses. But they're not in themselves strengths or weaknesses. It's just the way you are. So let's talk about my forwardness and bluntness about some things. In some circumstances, with some people, it's a boon. In other circumstances, not so much, right? And so I have to learn to modulate those things or modulate where I am. I'll give you a really funny one. I'm very disorganized. People don't know that, but they don't expect it, but I'm very disorganized, right? Is that a strength or a weakness? Is that a strength or a weakness? Now, most people will be like, oh, it's a weakness. Is it though? I don't know. Maybe it's circumstantial, right? So if I have a lot to get done and I'm not good at keeping it all organized, some things absolutely fall through the cracks. I am notorious for being like, I have to do that, and literally a minute later forgetting to do it. Like literally, people like, I just told you. I'm like, I know, I forgot. They're like, how can you forget? It was literally 1 minute ago. I'm like, I know, I forgot. ADHD. I mean, it's not an excuse. I didn't write it down. I forgot. You're like, so being disorganized, bad. Okay, now I'll take another example. I went to this networking event when I was young in my career, met this guy. He's like, your stuff's amazing. I would love to work with you. Here's my card. Be in touch. I'm like, great, fantastic. Of course, I lost the business card almost immediately. So if I was organized, I'd be, texting from the taxi on the way home or emailing the next day to make contact. Not me. I lost the business card, lost the opportunity, gone. 2 weeks later, I found the business card. Happened to be at the bottom of a bag somewhere. So I emailed the guy. I'm like, I don't know if you remember me. 2 weeks ago we met. Wanted to see if we still want to work together. He wanted to work with me even more because he thought I was busy. So, is being disorganized a strength or a weakness? Depends. It depends. So I know that I have these attributes and these characteristics, and I work very hard to figure out where those things will show up as strengths, and then make sure to put myself in those situations more than the other situations.
This relates so much to something that
But no good, bad, no right, wrong, no strength, weakness.
Yep.
Costs and benefits, attributes and characteristics. That's it. Everything else is circumstantial.
So how do you look at comparison then? Because when I look at when I used to compare myself before I understood where I maybe don't say the word strengths now, but where I had stronger abilities.
Abilities that manifested as strengths in the circumstances in which they showed up.
Exactly. Right. But as human beings, we naturally compare ourselves all the time. And I feel like the more I've gone into creating a brand and this space, I'm always aware of competition in a healthy way, right? Because a lot of the time it spurs me on.
Sure.
And I'm learning, and I feel like I'm surrounding with more A+ people and people that I'm inspired by. But then it gets to a part where, there's a very known term that comparison can be the thief of joy.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Exactly. So that can be destructive at the same time. Have you, obviously you have experienced this because you were human.
And I've written about it.
Okay. So how do you approach that then in a really healthy way? Because I think that's something that we can feel really stigmatized about talking about that openly. And what we then do is kind of carry that as a burden, but it's human nature. So there's a healthy way to deal with it. And how, because you must all the time be scanning for your competitors.
Okay, let's be clear, right? Which is all of the things I'm talking about are strivings. I'm an expert in absolutely nothing that I have said today, right? I'm a student of all of the things I've talked about, and all of those things for me are practices. And sometimes the practice is going well, and sometimes the practice is not going well, right? But just like being diagnosed with ADHD gave me a pathway and an accountability and a sense of control over the situation, so too by me able to articulate all these things gives me a sense of agency and control over all of these things. So am I the victim? Of course. Of course. Like everybody. Sometimes I feel that everybody's out to get me. Of course. Of course. Are there days that I ignore everything that I'm saying to you and I beat myself up because why can't I just be better at that? Why can't I just, of course. Because I let somebody down or let myself down or wanted something that I wasn't able to achieve, of course. Right? So, but it's like anything. Like to be good at riding a bicycle, somebody first has to show you how to ride a bicycle. To be good at, to learn how to write a sentence, first somebody has to teach you how to read and write. Like all those books that you very generously put on the shelf over there, right? Long ago, I had to, see, spot, run. Like I had to learn to read and write and practice all those things and get yelled at about bad sentences and run-ons and all this. It took me years to learn how to write. And that's it. These things are all practices. And so if I can articulate them, I can practice them. If I don't articulate them, I can't have an ambition to write a book if I don't know how to read and write. It's absolutely pointless. Right? And so the reason I work hard to understand these things is so that I can get better at them and do them. Each book I've written was better written than the previous book. Like go read Start With Why. I mean, I just edited it. There's a new version just coming out now, the 15th anniversary edition, right? And reading the old version, the original version, I'm a little embarrassed. Because I'm a better writer. Because by the time you get to the 5th book, turns out you're a little better, right? I would hope.
You would hope. But are there any moments that pop up against your is healthy competition now?
Well, I've had very unhealthy competitive relationships with people who do what I do. I've talked about this. I was on the stage with somebody who was my nemesis, not because I wanted him to be. He does what I do. He writes books. He gives talks. I like his work. He's extremely talented. He's extremely good at what he does. And I irrationally hate him, and he's always been very charming and nice to me. And when his name comes up in polite conversation, I smile and nod. And what's inside, I feel like anger and self-loathing and nothing nice. And we were invited to speak on the same stage together. I don't mean like me in the morning, him in the afternoon. I mean like we were going to be interviewed together on the same stage. And the interviewer thought it would be fun if we introduced each other. And I went first. And I turned to him and I said, on the stage, I said, you make me really insecure. I said, all of your strengths are all of my weaknesses. And when your name comes up, I feel inadequate. And he turned to me and said, funny, I feel the same about you. And this was this beautiful catharsis that I realized that my competitive spirit with him, and when I say competitive, I mean like I would compare my book rankings with him. I would compare how many followers I had obsessively. No one else.
Just him.
Just him. Turns out people can follow more than one person on Instagram. Turns out people can read more than one book. Like the whole thing was stupid. And it was my insecurity was manifesting as competitive spirit. I was so competitive. Think about how stupid that is. I'm trying to beat somebody else. At what? It's absolutely stupid. It's stupid in business. It's stupid in life. There's no such thing as one company, right? We hate monopolies. And so this cathartic experience for me made me realize that this excessive competitive spirit was more about me than about him. And so I changed, and I've written about it. I wrote about it in The Infinite Game because all of my books are semi-autobiographical. They're my journey, right? And so I stopped thinking about competitors and I now think about worthy rivals. There are other people who do what I do whose work is worthy of comparison. And their strengths reveal to me my weaknesses, not so that I can outdo them, but so that I can outdo myself. And so now I have a deep gratitude for people who do things better than me so that I can better myself. Deep gratitude, love even, because otherwise how am I going to know? It's those insecurities that when somebody else's name comes up, because other people's names come up and I'm like, oh, love them, love their work, and I mean it. And there are other people's names come up and I'm like, and it happens to us at work, by the way.
Yeah.
It happens to us in offices where somebody gets a promotion and we are angry that they got a promotion. We have no joy that they had success in their career. Other friends, sure. That colleague, no. Why? Hate them. Why do you hate them? They're smarmy and they schmooze and all they do is blow smoke. That's all they do. I'm so much, So basically what you're saying is they're better at networking and being social than you are. And you're angry because you can't do that. Is that about them or is that about you? We all do it.
We all do it.
We all do it. We all do it. We all do it.
Well, highlights our insecurities.
And that's a
Hugely.
horrible, horrible thing to face. And so all of this stuff we're talking about is about accountability. And when you can name it and point it and say, it's me. It's me.
Something that's
It gives you amazing control.
Something that's really stopped me in my work is my insecurities. And that's hindered my creative process hugely.
Well, it turns out you're like every one of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that takes me to my next question, which I want to know with your different abilities, not strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to say that now.
My attributes and my characteristics.
Your attributes. Yeah, exactly. I'll let you say that word. With your ADHD as well,
My
and
superpower,
your superpower, your interesting mind, and which led you where you're going to get today. And you've written 5 books, and I did put them up because you should be proud of them.
Thank you. I love all my children equally.
Exactly.
Not true.
Pick
I
your
have
best
favorites.
one.
No, I have favorites.
Which one is your best? Which one's your favorite?
My favorite book is Together is Better. My favorite book is Together is Better.
That's the one I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really a magical, fantastic, wonderful little book. It is my favorite book. But my proudest book is Infinite Game. It's my most mature work, I think, with some really good thinking, but also immense gratitude to start with. Why? Because it's that sweet little elegant idea that started the whole thing. So I guess I have different feelings about each of them.
Like children.
Like children. Yeah.
Can you talk me through, from someone who is going on a journey right now to try and write, whether I succeed is a different question, but you've written each one very differently, you told me. You also have this amazing mind when I talk to you about books, the things that you bring out and the things that you see, the things that I would never have thought about. You have this incredibly intuitive mind when it comes to books, although you thought you'd never be a book writer, which again is that duality. Actually, it seems like, well, it is a massive strength of yours.
Takes a lot of effort.
What I mean, the proof's in the pudding and it's right there. So how do you get into a creative mindset? Because something I heard you say, which I love, and I talk about this in health, but I didn't think about this in creativity, is how individual each person is. And my journey, because my mind feels different to who I follow in the high performing world, you know, the 5 a.m. club is something I can't resonate to. The get up, do 50 pages in the morning and come back and look at it in the evening. I really struggle with that process. And I've tried to, over the years, fix myself into what I think is the right way. And actually hearing and spending so much more time around your creative process has given me my inspiration to kind of follow what intuitively feels right for me. How do you lean into that? And how did you find that? And what is your process?
So it's a process of curiosity and experimentation, right? I don't believe in writer's block. I believe you just haven't found the way to let the ideas out yet. And so there's multiple ways to do it. You can experiment yourself or you can experiment with other people's processes, but there's no right way. There's a right way for someone. And so the people who say you have to treat it like a job, you work from 9 to 5 and you just write all day. Good. That works for some people. Other people say, nope, it's all about goals. You write 2,500 words a day. Even if it's shit, you just keep writing. That works for some people, but not others. The people who get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to exercise, and if you don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're a loser, because those people love to tell us that we're losers. I love to sit in bed and do nothing but like read the newspaper and do the crossword puzzle. And apparently to them, I'm a loser, right? All right. You know, it works for them. It doesn't work for me. And I think it's okay to say that. Good for them, right? Good for them. I'll try it. It didn't work. I didn't like it, right? I've tried it. I never got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I've done the working out when I wake up thing. You know, I didn't like it. And so I didn't know how to write a book. And so when I got my first book deal, nobody knew that I could write a book. I had no history of writing anything longer than a few pages, you know? And so based on my insecurities and based on their recommendations, they said, you should hire a writer. And I went, okay. And my agent gave me a writer. He was in Portland, Oregon. I flew up to Portland to start writing my book with this guy. He signed the contract when I got there. I paid him his first check, you know, because it says pay first half, you know, upon signing. So I was literal about it because that never happens, but you know, whatever. And he spent the day basically trying to change my idea. I mean, remember, I'd been giving the speech already for 2.5, 3 years. Like I knew my stuff. And he basically had his own agenda for my idea and kept trying to change it. Oh, by the way, as soon as I gave him the check, the first thing we did was drive to the bank together and deposit. That was weird. But anyway, and so I realized this is a horrible mistake. This guy is terrible. My agent gave me completely the wrong person. And so I went back to my hotel room that night. I called the bank, stopped the check, did that first, called him up and said, listen, I don't think this is going to work out. I don't think we're going to work together. And just so you know, I've stopped the check. And let's just consider this over, right? It's not going to work. And the first thing he started doing was yelling at me. How dare you? You owe me that money. You signed a contract. And I said to him, first of all, good luck enforcing that contract on a court of law. You've suffered no injury. You've suffered no injury. You have to suffer injury. And there's always a cooling off period when a contract is immediately signed anyway. Like I didn't know a lot of law, but I knew that. You know, I'm like, so sure, you threaten me all you want, right? And I said to him, super grateful for this, because if you had been a gentleman about it, I would have doubted my decision. But the fact that you're talking to me this way, you have proved to me that I made 100% the right decision. And I flew back to New York, changed my flight, came back early, and now I had a problem. I had to write a book. And so I just decided to write it myself. And I hired, instead of having a writer, I got somebody to help me do the research. And so I hired this wonderful journalist. She was a New York Times journalist from the New York Times, obviously. There you go.
You've really credited her there, though.
Yeah.
So well done.
Lori Flynn. And Lori was magic, and she was delightful and sweet and just wanted to help me get my ideas out. And she, you know, she would write a section based on her research and I'd tweak it and make it my own. But I wrote about 80% of Start With Why by myself and edited her stuff to make it sound like me. You know, she'd go do research on, I don't know, whatever it was. And then she was great. And that worked really well for me.
How did you get down to sitting down and writing it with how I know you now with ADHD?
So planes were very helpful for me because I would travel a lot. And so I realized my most productive time was when I was lying on trips. You know, I'd write blogs and things. And so once I got the book deal, what I started to do was I booked flights to nowhere. I called the airline, called Delta Airlines and said, hey, listen, here's my problem. I need to be in the air about 3.5 hours. I don't care where I go. I need a cheap flight because I don't have any money. I only had one thing because of my crazy lifestyle. I had a little bit of status on the airlines. I said, I need you to put me in a flight with light loads so that the odds of me getting an upgrade are very high, right? And help me find a flight. What day, what time, you tell me. And they gave me a couple options. And I flew to Orlando for the day. I flew to Arizona for the day. Flew to Los Angeles for the day from New York. Just got on the plane, flew there, had lunch, flew back. And I wrote more on those flights than I did when I sat at my desk. I found this weird place to work, you know, and it worked great for me. And so when I got the opportunity to write Leaders Eat Last, booked a flight to nowhere, showed up at got on the taxi with just my computer under my arm. But I'd forgotten that for the years between those two books, I had this crazy lifestyle of flying around all over the place. And the last thing I wanted to do was get on another flight. And literally in the taxi on the way to the airport for my first writing day, I told the taxi, I can't do this. And I had the taxi driver turn around. I just missed my flight. I couldn't do it. And so now I had a problem. The way I write, I don't want to do it anymore. So how am I going to write? So I had to find another way to write.
Which was?
I hired a babysitter.
Tell me.
Legitimately, like she was wonderful and fantastic. And her job was to sit in my apartment and just make sure I was writing. She'd sit on the couch. I'd sit on the desk, which was in the same room, because I live in New York City, and your office and your living room and your dining room are all the same room.
Thing.
And she'd look up from the couch every now and then and go, "Are you writing?" I went, "Yeah." And every now and then I turn around and be like, "Let me read you this." And I just loved having her there. She was great, and she was supportive, and she was wonderful, and she was a great sounding board. And sometimes we wouldn't say anything for hours, but just having her there made me want to work harder. My most productive days were when she was there. She hated that I called her my babysitter, but let's be honest, she was sitting and I'm the baby.
Do you know what I'm hearing as you're saying this? They're different creative processes.
Yeah. But that's why I don't believe in writer's block. You just have to find and so when people are like, it's not working, I have writer's block. No, you don't. You just have to change the process. You're using the old process and the old process doesn't work anymore.
But you basically, what you've done, I don't know if this is what I'm hearing, is that you're figuring out, it's really hard for me to not say weaknesses, but I'm just going to say it because it's in my mode of thought, that you've basically figured out where your moments of weakness spike, which is basically you get very distracted. You can't get distracted on a plane. So
when
your
there's no
theory,
internet and
exactly, your theory is like, well, where can I shut myself off and literally not be able to get out of a room because I'm going to fall into midair and it's illegal. You put yourself on a plane. You've literally taken every single part that is going to distract you because that's the one place where you physically have to concentrate. The next one, it doesn't work because I'm too used to this now maybe, or because I'm overwhelmed by the amount of flights that I have to get on. The next one is, okay, well, I'm going to hire someone to sit with me to make sure I'm doing my work.
Because I know that if I'm home by myself,
you'll get distracted.
I'll stare into the fridge for half an hour and I'll putter around and I'll look at websites and do online shopping and pick up a magazine.
So it's basically like your creative process that you figured out is how you
I force the ADHD to work.
Exactly.
I force the ADHD. I force the superpower. And I even have a special playlist that I've put together over years because I know that there are certain tunes and certain songs that may help me focus. Like as soon as I hear the music, I'm right in it. And so I have playlists. It's really funny. You can look at my computer or my phone. It'll say studying 1, studying 2, studying 3. Those are my focus playlists. And I put together, like I said, I put them together over years. And when I have a lot of work to do, I turn on those playlists and I'm right in it. So yeah, I found the ways to, it's not foolproof.
No.
They're not foolproof, but on balance, I found ways to make the superpower turn on. That's true. Anybody with ADHD also knows that, and people with ADHD self-medicate with caffeine, right? Because the way you treat ADHD is with a stimulant. That's why you only take the pill in the morning, right? And so before there was Ritalin or Adderall, any of those things, anybody with ADHD would drink a frick ton of coffee, which makes everybody else crazy and makes people with ADHD really focused. And in college, I remember I would either take this, they had this soda called Jolt, and it advertised itself as all the sugar and twice the caffeine. And I would pour multiple cans of it into a big tumbler and I'd leave it overnight so it would go flat so I could drink it quickly. Or I would, same with coffee, but I'd make it cold so I could drink it quickly. And I would just down caffeine and then focus like crazy. So people with ADHD, a lot of us discover caffeine.
What was that drink that we found out on Air One last night where that girl was hyper-focused, the cashier?
I don't know.
It was
I don't know if
she was hyper-focused.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to advertise an Air One smoothie.
Oh, I don't even know if it was. I don't think it was. Was it a smoothie?
Yeah, it was one of the Air One drinks. They're so overpriced.
Yeah, but hyper-focused. This one that had like double stimulants and caffeine.
It just had a lot of, crack cocaine in it, I think. Yeah.
What do you think that is? Let's just quickly move on. What do you think is the one thing that people get wrong about you?
I mean, they get many things wrong about me. They think I'm really organized. We've already dispelled that myth. They think I read a book a week.
Yeah, that surprised me. And that was one of my favorite things from someone who doesn't like reading as much. I can't believe I've said that out loud, but I feel like I get stigmatized.
I carried a lot of shame for many years because as an author, people ask me these very consistent questions like, what book are you reading right now? Or what books are on your bedside table? You know, I got that question all the time. And I had a lot of shame to say I'm not, I have books on my bedside table. I mean, I haven't opened any of them, but I have a lot of books on my bedside. I love the idea of reading. You know, I buy books like they're going out of fashion, always thinking this will be the one I'm going to read every single time. I've read one book from cover to cover in my life, not my own books excluded. That's the best thing about writing a book, by the way, because if when I'm reading it and I get bored, I can just delete it. So I wrote books that are easy to read because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to read it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have to edit it. So that's the funny thing. That's why they're easy to read. But yeah, I've only ever finished one book my whole life from cover to cover.
Which is?
Da Vinci Code. It's so good. It's so good. It was the strangest thing.
Why?
I had that. I don't know. It was like I was at a conference and I would like, if we had a 20-minute break, I would go up to my room and read for 20 minutes. Like I was like that person. It was amazing. Because to Dan Brown's credit, it's really, really short little sections. I read a lot of newspapers and magazines. I read articles.
Yeah,
I just don't read books.
Yeah.
And when I read a book, the first thing I do, it's horrible. When I sit down to read a book, I'm like, I'm going to read a book. And the first thing I do is I look at how long the chapter is. And it's like 18 pages. I'm like, But when I can move it, it's like, oh, it's only a page and a half section. Oh, great. That's why my books are written in little short little sections. For me, not for you. But yeah, I always look at the length of a chapter, and if I'm intimidated by the length, I then close the book because I can't get through 18 pages or 20 pages or 50 pages, you know?
Of all the...
One book. I've read one book.
I love that. I've read one book, but it was when I was 13.
Yeah. What was your book? What book did you read? Go ahead.
It was a child's book. It was...
You should read Da Vinci Code.
It was... I can't remember her full name now. Tracy something. She did these like really incredible stories. And I just remember being exactly the same, running out to my room, reading it all. I mean, I have to read a lot for the show, but I'm an auditory learner. So I listen to everything on Audible or Spotify or whatever. I mean,
I've tried to do
I love
audiobooks.
that.
People ask me, do you like audiobooks? And nope, I get distracted with those too. I've tried. I went on a 5-hour drive. I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to a whole book. No, it didn't work. And when I do listen to things, when I do some audio things, I listen to it literally as fast as my brain can take it. Double time speed. It's insane. And like other people like, can you understand this? I'm like, yes, because the ADHD turns on and I have to hyperfocus to keep up with the speed. And I can very easily listen to something at like 1.8 to 2 times speed.
So something that I think I've learned more from than anything else before is this show. This for me feels like the university of life. That's how I call it. I mean, the amount of people that I speak to on different
Somebody
areas.
else already has that brand, but it's a great brand.
Yeah.
Alain de Botton, he's so good.
School of
That's
Life.
His School of Life, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. So, I mean, yeah, he's one of my favorites. The amount of knowledge that I've grasped on this show, and you have an incredible podcast, A Bit of Optimism.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you for the plug.
No, but it's true. And I want to know, and I know you might, I think I know what you might say, and I'm going to see if I can get you to give a different answer. What's been, if we take military out of it, because I know for you that is your biggest inspiration, and I really understand why, because it's all about helping others. It's all about the needs of others. But if we isn't a military person sat in front of you, what's been the most inspiring conversation that you've had?
There's no such thing. There's no such thing.
Nothing that's kept your mind going when you leave?
There's no such thing as the most inspiring conversation I've ever had. I've had many experiences where my mind keeps going after I've left.
Can you tell me one?
I mean, when I discovered The Infinite Game, Jim Carse's work, and my friend Brian Collins, early in my career, said, here, read this kooky, weird little philosophy book. It is a kooky, weird little book. And it changed the way I saw the world, and I got the opportunity to build on his magical thinking and take it even further. And I got a chance to know him before he died, and he was magical and so grateful that I sort of gave his work new life, gave his thinking new life. But I mean, my friend Thomas and I, like every time we talk, we have, like he and I hate small talk. We go deep, fast. And every time I talk to Thomas, my brain is spinning. Every time I talk to my friend JB, my brain is spinning. There are certain people in my life, every time I talk to them, like,
There's something about a podcast that gives you a unique opportunity to speak to a huge variety of people. So rather than staying in a
yeah, but I don't do that anyway. But
Yeah.
I don't have a vertical career. I have a horizontal career. I'm not the expert in manufacturing. I'm not about leadership in big companies. You know, I'm not even a leadership guy. It's kind of arbitrary, you know? So when we were titling the book, I thought I was writing a book about communication, you know? So, I mean, you know, I have a horizontal career, so I get to meet people in all kinds of places doing all kinds of things who know a lot more about the world than I do. And because I'm insatiably curious, vertical is boring. I don't want to be an expert. You know the concept, the jack of all trades?
Yes.
So many times, because people have accused me of not having focus my whole life. Every review I got at work, if only someone would focus, you know? In school, if only someone would focus. And what they don't realize, I'm more focused than everybody. I'm just focused way far over there, just not over here. And so it was lobbed at me as an insult my whole life. Hey, Simon, a jack of all trades is a master of none. But you know the whole quote? That's only half the quote.
What's the whole quote?
A jack of all trades is a master of none, but a master of many is better than one. Those idiots were paying me a compliment when they were trying to insult me.
I love that.
A jack of all trades is a master of none, but a master of many is better than one. There you go. Perspective.
His perspective. I mean, I very much relate to that. Simon, thank you for your curiosity and your vulnerability.
Yeah, it's fun. Thank you for opening up all these little Pandora's boxes.
So I should have done my research, but I wonder if this is going to be the same, which is the question that I asked you last time.
Which I don't remember.
Okay, great. Which is, what does live well, be well mean to you?
I think live well is about making choices. And I don't think you can, and I think it's everything we've talked about, right? Which is this journey, which is if you can understand how you work and how the world works and how we interact with the world, that you will find wellness when you take accountability for how you choose to live. And that doesn't mean it's not a destination, it is a journey. And so I think living well is what leads to being well. The choices we make, and just, the better we understand, the better it feels.
I do remember what you said last time.
What did I say last time?
In service of others.
Yeah.
To live in service of others. And why I love this question.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's funny because the thinking goes from the conversation we've had, right? It's relative to however we're thinking. But that's true. Now that you bring that up, I think to achieve the feeling of wellness and to live a life worth living is to live in service. I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
But isn't that just kind of the essence of the conversation that we've had today?
Yeah.
Right?
And I think
the flux of how it changes.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's true. I think it's all interrelated, which is because what you will discover very quickly is that the choices you make for yourself, if you're selfish about it, it doesn't work out well. You don't get, quote unquote, being well. But when you because everything we've talked about is, yes, I figured things out for myself, but then I gave them to others. Yes, I wrote books for this because things that were meant for me, I ended up deriving more joy giving them away. And, there is immense fulfillment in sharing some of the things that I figured out along my journey that will hopefully benefit your audience and other people. And so both are true simultaneously.
Simon, thank you.
Thanks for having me. So much fun.
I loved this.
Yeah, good times.
Thank you.